Ever think about, like, how we even got the math we use? Like, it just feels like it's always been there, right? Like gravity or something.
Yeah, it's easy to take for granted. But math, like anything else, any system of knowledge, it has a history. It's evolved, over centuries
Hmm.
from different cultures, brilliant minds.
Exactly. And today we're going to dive into, like, a system that kind of challenges some of those assumptions about what math can be. We're talking Vedic math.
Well, the fate of math.
It's this ancient Indian system that was rediscovered in the early 20th century, and it's based on these really cool things called sutras.
Sutras, yeah, like these little aphorisms, like little phrases packed with wisdom, mathematical wisdom. And what's fascinating is that the sutras, along with their corollaries, are said to encompass the entire scope of mathematics.
Okay, so these ancient texts, they supposedly hold the keys to unlocking all of math. That's a pretty big claim. Where do we even begin with something like that?
Well, our deep dive today is based on a document that explores the history and development of Vedic math. And like any good detective story, we'll start at the beginning, with the origins of these mysterious sutras.
Lead the way. I'm ready to get into it.
So imagine you got a group of Sanskrit scholars, and they're just meticulously poring over these ancient Vedic texts. These texts are incredibly vast, and they cover a wide range of subjects. You've got philosophy, spirituality, astronomy, you name it, it's in there.
So we're not talking math textbooks specifically.
No, not exactly. But within these texts, there is a section, and it's called Ganita Sutras, which translates to mathematics sutras.
Oh, right.
It's like finding a hidden treasure chest, within a larger library.
Okay, so that's where the math gems are hidden. What did these scholars do when they found them?
Well, it wasn't just as easy as like reading and understanding, right? These sutras, they're very concise and require very careful interpretation. It took a scholar by the name of Surati Krishna Chatterjee, and he worked between 1911 and 1918 to decipher 16 fundamental mathematical sutras from these ancient texts. And these became the foundation of what we now call Vedic math.
So we got these ancient sutras. They were rediscovered in the early 1900s. But how did they go from, like, a hidden treasure to something that people actually started paying attention to?
Okay, so this is where the story gets interesting. Now, fast forward to the late 1960s, and a copy of a book on Vedic math, it makes its way to London.
Okay, Vedic math goes global.
And it wasn't just any random people who took notice either. It sparked the interest of British mathematicians, including some big names like Kenneth Williams, Andrew Nicholas, and Jeremy Pickles.
So Vedic math landed in the right hands.
Okay.
People who could really see what it could do. What did they do with it?
Well, they saw something special in this system, something worth exploring and sharing. And in 1981, they compiled their findings into a book, which was titled Introductory Lectures on Vedic Mathematics. And this became a key bridge between this ancient wisdom and modern mathematical thinking.
I love that. Vedic math has this whole journey. It's like crossing continents and sparking interest in different places. Did it ever, like, make its way back to India?
It did, actually. One of those mathematicians, Andrew Nicholas, he made several trips to India between 1981 and 1987, and these trips played a crucial role in rekindling interest in Vedic math among Indian scholars and teachers. It's like it went on this grand adventure, came back home with new life.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, so we've got the historical context, ancient sutras, rediscovery, it went across continents, came back to its roots. But what about the math itself? What is it about Vedic math that people are saying makes it so advantageous?
Well, one of the most striking things about Vedic math is that it really emphasizes mental calculation. It's designed to be flexible, efficient, and surprisingly easy to use once you understand the core principles.
So it's less about, like, memorizing formulas and more about understanding, like, the patterns, how the numbers relate to each other.
Exactly. Vedic math encourages a much more intuitive way of problem solving. It's about recognizing patterns, applying general principles, and this can make math more engaging and accessible for learners of all different
That
levels.
makes a lot of sense.
You
It's
know,
like learning the strategy of the game instead of just memorizing all the moves.
exactly. And this approach can be incredibly powerful, especially when we're talking about mental math.
Okay, I am definitely intrigued by this idea of, like, mastering mental math. Can you give us a little, like, taste of how this actually works? What are these sutras all about?
Well, each of the 16 main sutras, along with their sub-sutras, they all cover a different mathematical concept or technique. Some are pretty straightforward, while others go into much more advanced topics.
Do you have a favorite sutra you can share?
A favorite. Well, one that I find very intriguing is by one more than the one before. This seemingly simple phrase. It can be applied to a wide range of problems, from squaring numbers to understanding calculus concepts. Another one that comes to mind is all from 9 and the last from 10, which is surprisingly helpful for simplifying subtraction and other operations.
Wow. Those are pretty concise. It's amazing how much math can be packed into such small phrases. Can you actually show us how one of these works in like a calculation?
Absolutely. Let's take that sutra by one more than the one before, and let's use it to square a number. Let's say we want to find the square of 108.
Okay, let's see some Vedic math magic.
All right, so in this case, we recognize that 108, that's 8 more than 100. And this extra amount, we're going to call it the surplus. The sutra tells us to look at one more than the one before. So we take that number before the surplus, 100, and we add 1 to it, giving us 101. Then we multiply that by our original number, 108, and that gives us a 1908.
Okay, so that's interesting. But what about that 8, the surplus? Where does that fit in?
Ah, that's the final step. We square the surplus, so 8 times 8, which is 64, and then we simply add that to our previous result. So 1308 plus 64 equals 10972, and there you have it, the square of 108.
Wait, that's it? That was so much faster than the way I learned to square numbers?
That's the beauty of Vedic math. It often allows you to skip the bulkier steps of traditional methods and get to the answer with much more efficiency.
Okay, I gotta admit, I'm starting to see the appeal of this system. It feels almost like a shortcut, but it's actually based on understanding how the numbers work. Like, deeper.
That's exactly the point. It's not about magic tricks. It's about recognizing patterns and relationships that are already inherent in the number system.
It's like cracking the code. You're like finding those elegant patterns that are hidden within what looks like a complex calculation.
Exactly. That's what makes Vedic math so fascinating. It encourages you to approach math with a sense of curiosity and even playfulness, but to see the beauty, the elegance beneath the surface.
I'm definitely feeling curious. What other, like, numerical codes can we crack with Vedic math?
Well, we've only just begun. There's a whole world of techniques to uncover, each with its own set of insights and applications.
I'm ready to dive in.
So let's explore another example using the same sutra by one more than the one before, but this time we'll apply it to cubing a number.
Cubing with a sutra. Okay, now that sounds interesting. What number are we going to cube?
Let's take 102. Remember, the sutra tells us to look at one more than the one before.
Right, so if our surplus is 2, one more than the number, the base of 100 would be 101.
Exactly. Now we multiply 101 by our original number 102.
Okay, so that gives us 10302. But how do we incorporate the surplus into like cubing?
This is where it gets interesting. We're going to use the surplus, this too, in a 3-step process. First, we multiply the surplus by the result we just got. So 2 times 1302, which gives us 2604.
So we're scaling up that initial product using the surplus. What's next?
Next, we square the surplus. So 2 times 2, which gives us 4. And we multiply that by 3, so that gives us 12.
Okay, so we're bringing in a new element here, multiplying the squared surplus by 3. What's the final step?
Lastly, we cube the surplus. So 2 times 2 times 2, which equals 8. Now we have all our pieces we've got. 1302, 2604, 12, and 8.
Wow, that's a lot of numbers. How do we put those together to get the cube of 102?
We simply arrange them in order and add them together. So it becomes 302 plus 2604 plus 12 plus 8.
Which gives us 106, 1208. That's amazing. Feels like a complex dance of numbers, but there's a clear logic to each step.
Exactly. Vedic math is all about breaking down what seems like a really complicated operation into these simpler, more manageable steps. And this approach not only makes mental calculation easier, but it also helps you see the patterns, the relationships within the numbers.
I'm really seeing how this system can change the way, like, how you even think about math. It's less about like just brute force memorization and more about like really understanding the elegance, the logic behind how it works.
Precisely. Now, are you ready to explore another fascinating aspect of Vedic math?
I'm ready for more. What's next on our Vedic math adventure?
Let's dive into the world of multiplication using Vedic techniques.
Multiplication. That's one where I could definitely use some Vedic wisdom. Traditional methods can be pretty tedious, especially when you're dealing with larger numbers.
Well, you're in luck, because Vedic math offers a variety of techniques to simplify multiplication, often making it faster and more intuitive than the standard methods. Let's start with an example using the sutra vertically and crosswise. This sutra is particularly helpful when multiplying two-digit numbers.
Vertically and crosswise. Okay, that sounds pretty intriguing. Can you walk me through an example?
Absolutely. Let's say we want to multiply 32 by 41.
Okay, a classic two-digit multiplication problem. How does how does vertically and crosswise help us out here?
First, we arrange the numbers vertically, just as you would in traditional multiplication.
Okay, so far so good. So what's the vertically part of the sutra?
So we start by multiplying the digits in the unit's place vertically. So 2 times 1, which gives us 2, and that's going to be the unit's digit of our final answer.
So our answer is going to end in a 2. Got it. What about the crosswise part?
Now we multiply the digits crosswise. We multiply the tens digit of the first number, which is 3, by the unit's digit of the second number, which is 1. And we add that to the product of the unit's digit of the first number, 2, and the tens digit of the second number, 4. So it's 3 times 1 plus 2 times 4, which gives us 11.
Okay, so we're combining those crosswise products. What do we do with that 11?
The unit's digit of this sum, which is 1, will be the tens digit of our final answer, and we carry over the remaining 1 to the next step.
All right, so we've got our units digit 2 and our tens digit 1. What's the last step?
Lastly, we multiply the tens digits vertically. So 3 times 4, which gives us 12, and we add that carryover 1. So 12 plus 1 is 13. And this forms the leftmost part of our answer.
So putting it all together, we get 1312. That's way quicker than the traditional way of like multiplying and then adding all the partial products.
Exactly. The vertically and crosswise method, it streamlines the process by breaking it down into these intuitive steps. And it's especially helpful for mental calculations because you're dealing with smaller products, smaller sums as you go along.
I can definitely see how that would be a game changer for mental math. It's like a mental shortcut,
Yeah.
but it's not just a trick. It's based on like actually understanding how multiplication works.
That's the heart of Vedic math, finding elegant and efficient ways to solve problems by tapping into those patterns, those relationships that are already within the number system.
This is really making me rethink my whole approach to multiplication.
Mhm.
Are there any other Vedic techniques for multiplication that we should know about?
Absolutely. Vedic math offers a whole range of techniques, each tailored to different scenarios. Let's look at another example, this time focusing on multiplying numbers that are close to a base number.
Multiplying near a base number. We talked about that earlier with squaring and cubing.
Mhm.
Is it the same principle for multiplication?
It is, and it's incredibly useful for simplifying calculations. Let's say we want to multiply 96 by 98.
Okay, so both of those numbers are close to 100.
Yeah.
So 100 seems like a natural base to use. How do we go about it?
We start by identifying the difference or the deficit of each number from the base. So 96 is 4 less than 100, and 98 is 2 less than 100.
So our deficits are 4 and 2. What do we do with those?
We have two options. We can either subtract the smaller deficit from the larger number, or we can add the smaller deficit to the smaller number.
Let's try it both ways just so we can see how it works.
Okay, so if we subtract the smaller deficit, which is 2, from the larger number, 98, we get 96. And if we add the smaller deficit to the smaller number, 96 plus 2, we also get 96.
Interesting. So either way, we end up with the same value. What's next?
We then we multiply the two deficits, so 4 times 2, which gives us 8.
Okay, so we've got 96 and 8. How do those fit together to give us the final answer?
We combine them with 96 as the leftmost part and 8 as the rightmost part, giving us 92608, and that's our answer.
Wow, that was remarkably simple. It's really amazing how understanding that relationship of the numbers to the base can make multiplication so much easier.
Exactly. Vedic math is all about leveraging those relationships to make calculations more intuitive and more efficient. It's about seeing that elegance and simplicity within what might at first seem like a pretty complex operation.
I gotta say, I'm starting to feel like a Vedic math convert. It's like a whole new world of math just opened up.
It's exciting, isn't it? Vedic math has this potential to really transform the way we think about math, making it more accessible, more engaging, and even more fun.
I totally agree. This whole deep dive has been a real eye opener. Before we move on to any other Vedic math wonders, can you just remind me what document we've been using as our source for all this?
Of course. We've been delving into this fascinating world of Vedic math based on a document that that chronicles its history, its development, and its key techniques.
It's incredible to think that this ancient system of mathematics is still so relevant, so insightful today. And I have a feeling we've only just scratched the surface.
Oh, you're absolutely right. There's a wealth of Vedic math knowledge just waiting to be explored, from its philosophical underpinnings to its practical applications in various fields.
Before we get too carried away with all the possibilities, I think it's time to take a step back and really think about what we've learned so far. We've covered a lot, from the history of Vedic math to some of its most impressive techniques.
We've journeyed from the discovery of those ancient sutras to the modern revival of this amazing system. And we've seen how Vedic math can really change our approach to calculations, making them faster, more intuitive, and even more enjoyable.
It's been a real mind-bending adventure, and I have a feeling there's still plenty more Vedic math surprises in store for us.
Oh, you're in for a treat. There's so much more to uncover, from techniques for solving algebraic equations to methods for simplifying complex calculations involving fractions and decimals.
I can't wait to dive into all that. But for now, I think we've given our listeners plenty to think about.
They certainly have. We've given them a taste of the power, the elegance of Vedic math, and hopefully spark their curiosity to learn more.
Exactly. And for those who are ready to continue this journey, I highly recommend checking out London Heartbeat Z Academy UK. They've been so instrumental in helping us bring this deep dive to life.
They're they're a fantastic resource for anyone who wants to expand their mathematical horizons.
They offer over 150 popular courses covering a wide range of subjects, including, of course, Vedic math. And you can find them on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, get those free regular updates. Don't miss out on any future amazing discussions like this one.
It's been a real pleasure sharing the wonders of Vedic math with you and our listeners.
Likewise. Now, where were we? I think we were about to uncover some Vedic secrets for tackling those algebraic equations.
Ah, yes. Let's delve into the world of algebra through the lens of Vedic math.
All right, algebra through the lens of Vedic math. That sounds pretty ambitious. Can Vedic math really help us out with those tricky equations with all the x's and y's?
It certainly can. Vedic math offers some really unique perspectives on algebra that can make it more intuitive, more efficient. It's not about replacing those fundamental concepts of algebra, but more about enhancing them with these clever techniques and shortcuts.
So it's like having a secret toolkit for those algebra problems.
Exactly. Let's start with a simple example, like solving a linear equation. Vedic math has this method called Parivartya Yojayet, which translates to transpose and apply. And it really simplifies that whole process of isolating the variable, finding its value.
Transpose and apply.
Oh,
Okay, it sounds simple enough. Can you walk me through an example?
of course. Let's take the equation 3x plus 5 equals 14. Our goal here is to find the value of x.
Okay, classic linear equation. How does transpose and apply come into play?
So we start by transposing the constant term, which is 5 in this case, to the other side of the equation. Since it's added on the left side, it becomes subtracted on the right side.
So we have 3x equals 14 minus 5, which simplifies to 3x equals 9.
Right. Now comes the apply part. We divide both sides of the equation by the coefficient of x, which is 3.
Okay, so that gives us x equals 9 divided by 3, which simplifies to x equals 3. So the solution to our equation is x equals 3.
You got it. The transpose and apply method, it just streamlines that whole process, by really focusing on isolating the variable efficiently. And it might seem like a small change, but it can make a big difference when you're dealing with more complex equations.
Yeah, I can see how that would be helpful, especially when you're trying to do like mental calculations, mental equations. It's much more like direct than the way I learned it.
And that's one of the key advantages of Vedic math. It really encourages you to think about those mathematical operations in a more intuitive and flexible way.
It's like finding those shortcuts through the maze, but the shortcuts are based on like actually understanding the math behind it.
Precisely. Now, are you ready to explore another Vedic math technique that can simplify those algebraic equations?
Absolutely. What What other algebra secrets are you gonna reveal?
Let's dive into the world of quadratic equations. Now, these equations they involve a variable squared, and they can be, they can be a bit tricky to solve sometimes. But Vedic math offers this elegant approach using a method called differential calculus.
Differential calculus. That sounds pretty advanced. Is it really possible to like simplify quadratic equations using calculus?
It might sound intimidating, but the concept behind it is actually pretty straightforward. It involves finding the derivative of the equation, which helps us pinpoint those points where the graph of the equation it changes direction.
Okay, I'm following you so far. So how does finding the derivative help us solve the equation?
Well, those points where the graph changes direction, they're crucial because they correspond to the roots or the solutions of the quadratic equation.
So by analyzing the derivative, we can basically like pinpoint the answers.
Exactly. It's like having a map that guides you, straight to
Yeah.
the treasure. Now, the actual process of finding the derivative and using it to solve the equation, it does involve some calculations, but trust me, it's much more streamlined and intuitive than the traditional methods of factoring or using the quadratic formula.
I'm willing to trust you on that one. I'm starting to really see how Vedic math offers this whole new perspective on algebra. It's not just about like crunching numbers. It's about really understanding those patterns, those relationships that are kind of like governing the equations.
That's the beauty of it. Vedic math encourages you to see algebra not as this set of rigid rules, but as this dynamic system with its own inherent uh, elegance and logic.
This has been such an eye-opening exploration. I gotta admit, I'm feeling a bit more confident about tackling those algebra problems now.
That's great to hear. Vedic math, it really has this power to empower us to approach math with
Yeah.
more confidence and understanding. It's not about making math, easier. It's about making it more meaningful.
I couldn't agree more. This deep dive has really shifted my perspective on what math can be.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you, and hopefully we've sparked a sense of curiosity in our listeners as well.
I have a feeling we have. We've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive from the history of Vedic math to its fascinating applications in arithmetic, multiplication, and even algebra.
We've journeyed through those ancient sutras, explored those elegant techniques, and discovered that power of mental calculation.
It's been an incredible journey. And before we wrap up, I just want to remind our listeners that if they're eager to explore further, they should definitely check out London Heartbeat's Ed Academy UK. They've been an invaluable resource for us in putting this deep dive together.
They're a fantastic source of knowledge and inspiration for anyone interested in expanding their mathematical horizons.
They offer over 150 popular courses covering a wide range of subjects, and you can find them on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to subscribe, get those free regular updates. Don't miss out on any future amazing discussions like this one.
It's been a pleasure sharing the world of Vedic math with you and our listeners. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those calculators ready for more mathematical adventures.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into Vedic math. Hope you enjoyed this journey as much as we did. It's amazing to see how an ancient system of knowledge can still be so relevant and insightful today. Vedic math offers us a fresh perspective on what math can be, and I encourage you to explore it further. Who knows what mathematical wonders you might uncover?